You had no right to talk to her like that in my own house." My son, Daniel, stood in the middle of my living room with his face red and his hands shaking. He was 42 years old, broad-shouldered, graying at the beard, a father himself. Yet in that moment he looked like the same angry boy who used to slam doors when life did not bend for him. I pointed at the front door. "Then maybe you should stop bringing people in here who think they can speak down to me." His wife, Melissa, let out a dry laugh from the hallway. "No one spoke down to you, Walter. You just don't like hearing the truth." "The truth," I turned to her. "The truth is this is still my home. You don't walk in here, look around at my things, and start whispering about what should be sold, packed, or thrown out like I'm already dead." Daniel dragged a hand over his face. "Dad, nobody said that." "You didn't have to. I saw the way she was looking at the house." Melissa crossed her arms. "Because I worry about you. You're 71, you forget things, you leave lights on. You nearly fell last month. And that gives you the right to measure my curtains with your eyes," I shot back. "To stare at my cabinets, to ask Daniel if I still has the old lockbox." The room went quiet. That was the moment. The little pause that tells an old man more than words ever can. Daniel looked away first. I felt it in my chest, a cold, slow ache. "Why were you asking about my lockbox?" "No reason," Melissa said too fast. I looked at my son, Daniel. He swallowed. "We were just talking, Dad." "About my lockbox." It wasn't a big deal. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Funny how the things people want from you are never a big deal to them. He took one step toward me. "Why do you always do this? Why do you always make everything sound ugly?" "Because ugly is usually what's hiding under pretty words." Melissa muttered, "Unbelievable." I ignored her. My eyes stayed on my son. "Did you come here today to visit me or to check what I still own?" His mouth opened, then closed. That answer was enough. For a second I saw another version of him, a little boy at the kitchen table, cheeks full of mashed potatoes, asking me if I would always be there. Back then I had reached across the table and promised him yes. I had worked double shifts, missed sleep, sold my fishing boat after his mother died, all to keep that promise. I raised him alone in this house. Every floorboard knew our story. And now he stood there making me feel like a man whose pockets were being checked before the funeral. "Get out," I said quietly. Daniel blinked. "Dad, come on. Both of you out." Melissa grabbed her purse at once, but Daniel did not move. "You're overreacting." "No, I'm finally reacting the right amount." His jaw tightened. "This is exactly why people can't help you." I stared at him. "Help me, is that what you call it?" He threw his hands up. "You think everybody's against you. You think everybody wants something." "And what do you think?" I asked. "That I'm too old to notice when my own son stops looking at my face and starts looking at my house." That hit him, I saw it. A flicker in his eyes, quick and guilty. He looked toward the kitchen, then the den, then back at me. "A small thing. A tiny thing. But not small to me." He had already been looking around. Melissa reached for his arm. "Daniel, let's go." He pulled his arm away from her and stared at me with a bitterness I had not seen this clearly before. "You know what? Fine. Stay here alone. Sit with your memories. Hold on to every old paper and broken lamp like they matter more than your family." I felt my throat tighten, but I would not let him see it. Family does matter. That is why this hurts. He froze. For 1 second I almost called him back. Almost told him to sit down, have coffee, calm down, try again. Then Melissa said, "He'll regret this when it's too late." I looked at her. "No, one of us will, I'm just not sure who yet." Daniel walked out first. Melissa followed. The front door slammed so hard the little framed picture of my late wife rattled on the wall. I stood there a long time, listening to the silence after them. Then I did what old men do when their hearts crack, but they refuse to break in public. I straightened the chairs. I turned off the hallway light. I picked up the sweater Melissa had dropped over the couch and folded it with hands that were steadier than I felt. That was when I noticed it. The spare key hook by the pantry was empty. I stared at the bare little nail. Daniel had not asked for his old key in years. I had forgotten I ever let him keep one. A strange calm settled over me then. Not rage, not panic, something colder. I walked to my bedroom, knelt beside the closet, and checked the bottom shelf where the metal box used to sit. It was still there, untouched, which meant something worse than theft had just entered my home. My son had not come to take anything. He had come to search. And judging by that missing key, he had probably already done it before. I did not sleep that night. At my age, sleep is already a thin thing, easy to tear, but that night it never even settled on me. I sat in my recliner with the lamp off and the television mute, listening to the old house breathe around me. Every little sound felt loaded. The refrigerator humming in the kitchen, a branch scraping the window, the floor settling under years of weight and memory. And under all of it was one thought I could not shake. My son had searched my house. Not by accident, not once, not in some harmless, curious way. He had done it quietly behind my back, and he had done it enough to know where to look. That hurt more than if he had stolen from me. Stealing is greedy, searching is personal. Around 2 in the morning, I got up and walked through every room with a small flashlight. I checked drawers, cabinets, the desk in the den, the old cedar chest in my bedroom, even the cookie tin above the fridge where I kept spare cash for the plumber, the lawn boy, little things like that. Nothing was gone. Nothing looked broken or forced. But once you know someone has been inside your life without permission, everything looks touched. I stood in the hallway outside the small guest room and remembered Daniel at 10 years old, asleep under a baseball blanket, one arm hanging off the bed. I remembered carrying him inside after he fell asleep in the truck. I remembered tying his tie for his first middle school dance because he was too nervous to ask a girl named Hannah to dance. That is the ugly part nobody says out loud. Betrayal hurts worse when the memories are good. By morning, my chest felt heavy enough to crack a rib. I made coffee, burnt the first batch, and made another. At 9, my daughter called. Rachel had always been the steady one. 2 years younger than Daniel, sharp-eyed, soft-spoken, living 40 minutes away with her husband and twin girls. She had her mother's patience and my habit of listening too long before speaking. "Dad," she said, "you sound tired." "I am tired." There was a pause. "Daniel called me last night." That made me lean back in my chair. "Did he?" "He said you two had a bad fight." "We did." "He said Melissa was trying to help, and you accused them of circling the house like vultures." I let out a dry laugh. "That sounds cleaner than what happened." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "What really happened?" I looked out the kitchen window at the little patch of tomatoes I had not yet planted. "Your brother still has his spare key." "I know." The words came out so calmly that I almost missed them. I gripped the phone tighter. "You know." "Dad, listen to me before you get upset." "Too late." She exhaled slowly. "A few months ago, Daniel mentioned checking on you when you didn't answer your phone. He said he used the key once." "Once?" "That's what he said." I stood up and walked to the sink because sitting suddenly felt too small. "Rachel, your brother has been in my house searching through things." Silence. Then she said very softly, "Are you sure?" "Yes." Another silence, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. "Dad, what does he think is in there?" That question hit me hard because it meant she already suspected something. I turned from the window. "What do you know?" "Not enough," she said quickly. Just that Melissa been pushing him about money for over a year. That got my attention. Daniel had always earned decent money, not rich but comfortable. Good sales job, nice truck, decent neighborhood. What kind of money problems? Rachel hesitated. Rachel. She wanted a bigger house. Then there were school fees, credit cards, some home equity loan, and I think Daniel made a bad investment with one of Melissa's cousins. He never told me everything, just enough to sound stressed and proud at the same time. I closed my eyes. Pride, that was Daniel's weakness, always had been. Even as a boy, he would rather fail alone than ask for help in front of anyone. Rachel's voice softened. Dad, I think they believe you have something put away. My eyes moved slowly toward the den, toward the old desk, toward the framed photograph sitting on top of it. Me and my late wife, June, standing in front of this same house on the day we bought it. There used to be talk, Rachel said carefully. Back when Mom was alive, about some money. I only remember pieces. I sat down again, hard this time. Your mother never talked loosely. I know, but kids hear things. Aunt Gloria used to joke that Mom always had an emergency plan. And Daniel heard Uncle Marty once say that if anything ever happened, you and Mom would be the only ones in the family who could save yourselves without begging a bank. A slow heat moved through me then. Not because she was wrong, because she was getting close. My wife had believed in quiet preparation. She came from nothing and trusted no hard season to stay away forever. Over the years, she saved where she could, tucked papers where nobody thought to look, and kept one private record of everything that mattered. Very few people knew that. Daniel should not have known enough to come hunting, unless somebody told him where to start. Dad, Rachel said, what aren't you telling me? Before I could answer, I heard it. The soft metal click of a key turning in my front door. I looked up toward the hallway. The door began to open, and I knew my son had come back while I was still on the phone. Dad, Daniel's voice came through the front hall like he belonged there. I held the phone tighter. Rachel, I said quietly, he's here. What? She whispered. The key works. I ended the call before she could answer. For 1 second I stayed still in my chair, listening to his footsteps on the hardwood floor. They were careful, almost measured, not the footsteps of a son rushing in after a fight to apologize. These were the steps of a man who thought he was entering a place he could manage. Then he appeared in the doorway of the den and stopped cold when he saw me sitting there. His eyes dropped to the phone in my hand, then flicked toward the kitchen, the hallway, the front door behind him. He had that same guilty stillness he used to get as a boy when I caught him with cookie crumbs on his shirt. Dad, he said, forcing a laugh, you scared me. I set the phone down on the side table. That's funny. I was about to say the same thing. He stayed in the doorway. I knocked. You used your key. He rubbed the back of his neck. I figured after last night maybe we should talk. People usually talk before letting themselves into somebody else's house. His face hardened a little. I'm your son. And I'm your father. That doesn't make this less wrong. He glanced around the room again, and there it was, that restless look. Not at me, around me. I stood slowly, every joint in my body suddenly loud. Why are you here, Daniel? He opened his mouth, then gave me the kind of smile people use when they are already lying. I came to make sure you were okay. After using your key. You weren't answering your phone. You didn't call. That landed. He looked away. The thing about raising a child alone is that you learn all his tells. Daniel always looked down and left when he was trying to build a lie from thin air. He shoved his hands into his pockets. Fine, I wanted to check on you. So you keep saying. He let out a breath like I was the difficult one. Why does everything have to turn into a courtroom with you? Because evidence matters. That made him blink. I took one careful step toward him. Let me save us both time. You didn't come to apologize. You didn't come to check on me. You came because you thought I'd be out and you wanted another chance to search. His face changed then. Not fully, not enough for a confession, but enough. Dad, listen to yourself. No, you listened to me. I found the empty key hook. I noticed what your wife asked about. I noticed where your eyes went. I am old, Daniel. I am not blind. His jaw flexed. You always think the worst of me. The words stung because part of me still wanted them not to be true. No, I think what your behavior earns. He stepped farther into the room now, defensive heat rolling off him. You have no idea what pressure I'm under. And that gives you the right to go through my home. I was not going through your home. I looked him dead in the eye. Then say this clearly. Say you have never used that key when I wasn't here. Say it once and say it looking at me. He said nothing. The silence was so loud it felt like another person in the room. Finally he muttered, I was trying to protect the family. I stared at him. From what? From a mess you won't talk about. A chill ran through me. What mess? His voice sharpened. The money. I did not answer. He saw that and took another step. There is money, isn't there? I laughed once, but it came out tired. So that's what this is. Don't act like I'm crazy. Mom had savings. Everybody knew she kept records. Uncle Marty said she always had backup plans. And that gave you permission to start hunting. His nostrils flared. You sit in this house with everything locked down while the rest of us drown. The rest of us. He looked like he had not meant to say that much. Then the dam broke. You think this is about greed? Fine, you want truth. We are behind, okay? Badly behind. Melissa's cousin lied about an investment. I borrowed against the house to cover part of it. Then work slowed down. Then Tyler's school raised tuition. Then the bank started calling. I wake up every morning to numbers I can't fix. For a brief moment, through all my anger, I saw my son clearly. Not the betrayal, not the lie. Just a scared man cornered by his own mistakes. You should have come to me, I said. His eyes flashed. To hear what? A lecture. To ask for help. He laughed bitterly. You never make help feel like help. You make it feel like debt. That one hit deep because it carried something old inside it. Something older than this house search. Older than Melissa. Older than his money problems. I looked at him more carefully. How long have you been angry with me? He crossed his arms and stared at the floor. You really don't know. No. You think because you kept food on the table and paid the bills, that means you did everything right. I felt the room tilt just a little. When Mom died, he said, voice low now, you turned into a wall. You worked, you paid, you handled, but you never talked, you never cried with us. You never let us be broken with you. You just acted like pain was a job to finish. Rachel could live with that, I couldn't. I swallowed hard. There are some accusations a man rejects right away, and there are others that sink in because he has feared them for years. Daniel looked up at me with red, angry eyes. So yeah, maybe I stopped seeing you as somebody I could come to. Maybe I started seeing you as somebody who would hold onto money, secrets, and silence until everybody else choked on them. I sat down slowly because my legs no longer trusted me. The truth in his voice did not excuse what he did, but it made the wound wider. This was not just about money. This was about years, years of pride, years of things not said. He mistook my silence for weakness and kept going. Melissa said if there really was something put away, then maybe it was meant to help family. She said maybe you were testing us, or waiting, or just too stubborn to admit you couldn't manage it all anymore. At the mention of Melissa, something inside me clicked into place. Melissa said that. He hesitated. I leaned forward. How much of this started with her? His face closed right up. Too late. I knew that look too. My son had been desperate, yes. Foolish, yes. But this hunt, this push, this ugly boldness had someone else's fingerprints on it. And before I could press him further, a voice came from the front hall. Daniel. Melissa stepped into view, holding herself stiff and proud, like she had every right to be there. Then she looked at me and said, "Well, since we're finally being honest, maybe it's time you told him what you did with June's last letter." The whole room went still. Because I had never told either of my children there was a last letter. For a second, I could not breathe. Melissa stood near the front hall with one hand still on her purse strap, her chin lifted like she had come prepared for a trial. Daniel turned to her so fast you would think she had slapped him. "What letter?" he asked. I kept my eyes on Melissa. "Who told you that?" She gave a thin shrug. "Maybe the same way I found out about the money. People talk when families keep too many secrets." "There was a letter," Daniel's voice cracked this time, "from Mom." I rose from the chair slowly because suddenly I felt every year of my age. This conversation is over. "No," Daniel snapped. "It's not over, not anymore." Melissa stepped farther into the room. "You let him believe whatever story made you look noble, didn't you?" I pointed toward the door. "You need to leave my house." She did not move. "Did June write to them before she died?" "Melissa," Daniel said, his face pale now, "what are you talking about?" She looked at him, then back at me. "Ask your father why your mother's final words to this family never reached you." That did it. Daniel turned on me with a look I had not seen since the day I told him his mother was gone. It was the look of a child and a grown man at the same time, both demanding the world explain itself. "Dad," he said very low, "tell me she's lying." I wished I could. I wished 100 things in that moment. I wished June had lived. I wished grief had made me softer instead of harder. I wished I had burned that letter years ago, or handed it over, or gone back in time and become the man my children needed. Instead, I stood there in the den of the house I had tried so hard to keep together, and said nothing. Daniel staggered back one step. "There was a letter." I rubbed my mouth with my hand. "Your mother wrote it in the hospital." His eyes filled right away. "And you kept it?" "She asked me to." "For how long?" I looked down. His voice rose. "For how long?" "She did not give me a date." That answer made him laugh in disbelief. "You have got to be kidding me." Melissa folded her arms. "He kept it because it gave him control." "Be quiet," I told her. "No," Daniel shouted, pointing at me now. "You be honest. For once in your life, just be honest. You let me stand here all these years thinking Mom died without saying goodbye to me." "That is not what happened." "Then what happened?" My throat tightened. "She wrote one letter for the family, not just you, for all of us." Rachel's voice came from behind us. "Then I want to hear it too." We all turned. She stood in the open doorway, still breathing hard, car keys in one hand, fury in her eyes. She must have driven over the second our call ended. She looked from Daniel to Melissa, then to me, and her face broke in a way I had never seen before. "You kept Mom's last letter?" she asked. Nobody spoke. Her lip trembled. "Dad." I sat back down because I no longer had the strength to stand under all that hurt. "Your mother wrote it the night before she passed. She was weak. She asked me to wait until the right time." Rachel stared at me. "And what did you decide the right time was 20 years later?" The shame of it settled on me like wet concrete. "It wasn't that simple," I said. Daniel laughed again, harsher now. "It's always simple when it's somebody else's pain. Only your reasons get to be complicated." Rachel moved into the room and stood beside her brother, though she kept a little distance from him. Even angry, she still looked heartbroken more than cruel. "What did it say?" she asked. I looked at the floorboards. Because that was the truth. I knew the words almost by heart. I had read them in secret too many times, on birthdays, on Christmas nights after everybody had gone home, on mornings when the house felt too empty, on the anniversary of June's death. I had treated that letter like a wound and a blanket at the same time. "Dad," Rachel said, quieter now, "what did Mom say?" I went to the desk in the den, opened the bottom drawer, and took out a small leather folder. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. Daniel saw that and went still. He knew then. Whatever anger he had, however justified, he knew this thing had not been easy for me either. But pain does not cancel pain. It only sits beside it. I opened the folder and pulled out the letter. The paper had yellowed a little at the edges. June's handwriting was still neat, still careful, still hers. Rachel put a hand over her mouth. Daniel whispered, "My God." Melissa stepped forward, hungry-eyed, but Rachel turned sharply. "You stay back." For the first time all day, Melissa actually looked unsure. I unfolded the letter. My vision blurred so badly I had to blink twice. Then I read, "My dear family, if you are hearing this, then I am gone and your father is hurting more than he will ever know how to say. Do not mistake his silence for lack of love. That man loves so deeply it frightens him. Daniel, stop trying to become hard just because life is hard. Rachel, do not become the one who carries everybody until your own heart gives out. Walter, if you wait too long to open your hand, what you are trying to protect may turn into what destroys them." My voice broke. Nobody moved. I forced myself to continue. "There are papers with this letter. Not money, not hidden treasure, but the truth about the land in Tennessee, the one my father left in my name before he died. I never spoke much about it because my brother tried to challenge it years ago, and I did not want that poison in this family. The land was sold quietly before my illness became serious. After debts and taxes, what remained was placed in trust. It is for the children, and then for the grandchildren, but only if it is used with honesty and togetherness. If greed touches it, it will bury you all." I stopped reading. The room had gone dead silent. Daniel's face had lost all color. Rachel was crying openly now. Even Melissa looked stunned, though not for the same reasons. Daniel swallowed. "There really is money." Rachel turned on him. "That is what you heard from all that." He looked at her helplessly. "I heard, Mom, I heard all of it, but yes, I heard that too." Melissa spoke carefully. "How much?" That one question poisoned the air. Rachel stared at her in disgust. Daniel shut his eyes like a man hearing his own thoughts spoken by somebody else. I folded the letter with slow, numb fingers. "Now you see why I said nothing." Rachel wiped her tears angrily. "No, now I see why you should have said something sooner." She was right. The worst part was that she was right. I had told myself I was protecting June's final wish, protecting the family, protecting what grief had left behind. But really, over the years, I had also been protecting my own place in the story. The keeper, the one who knew, the one who still held something of June that nobody else could touch. That selfishness sat in my chest like a stone. Daniel looked at me with wet eyes and a ruined face. "You let me grieve wrong." Those 4 words cut deeper than anything else he had said. Because he was right too. I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, Melissa stepped closer, voice suddenly urgent. "Then we need to see the trust papers now." Rachel turned toward her like fire. "We." Melissa looked back at her without shame. "Daniel is part of this family." I watched my son. I watched the shame, the desperation, the pride, the panic, all of it fighting across his face. And then he did the thing I had been afraid of all along. He looked at the desk. Not at me. Not at his mother's letter. At the desk. At the papers. And in that moment, I understood something terrible. My son was not at the edge of regret yet. He was still choosing the betrayal. My son looked at the desk, the way starving people look at bread. That was the moment something inside me settled. Not broke, not exploded, settled. Because all day I had still been holding onto one last excuse for Daniel: desperation, confusion, his wife's pressure, old pain between us. Any father will do that. We build little shelters in our minds for the people we love, even while they are tearing the roof off over our heads. But when his mother's last letter was still warm in the room, when Rachel was crying, when I was barely holding myself together, and he still looked past all that toward the papers, I understood this was the line. "Daniel," I said quietly, "look at me." He did, but slowly. "What happens next," I told him, "will decide what kind of man you are for the rest of your life." Melissa let out a sharp breath. "Oh, please." I turned to her. "You have done enough." She opened her mouth, but Rachel stepped forward first. "No, really, you have. You pushed him into this house, into these lies, into searching through Dad's things like a criminal, and you still want to stand there acting like this is normal." Melissa's face tightened. "Do not put this all on me. Daniel made his own choices." That was true, and somehow it made her uglier. Daniel finally spoke, voice rough and low. "I just need to see the trust papers." Rachel stared at him like she did not know him. "Mom's letter just told you greed would bury us. And that is your answer." "It is not greed," he snapped. "It is survival." "No," I said. "Survival is asking for help before you start breaking what's left of your family." He flinched. I went to the desk, opened the drawer again, and took out the second folder, the one with the trust documents. Daniel took one step forward, but I held up my hand. "You do not touch these," I said. He stopped. I laid the folder on the desk and kept my palm on it. "Your mother set strict terms. The trust was never for rescuing pride, covering secret debts, or feeding bad decisions. It can help with education, medical emergencies, and real family need, but only through a trustee review. Together. Openly. No lies, no pressure, no private grabbing." Melissa's expression changed. "Trustee review? Who is the trustee?" I looked her straight in the eye. "Not you." Rachel almost smiled through her tears. Then I said the part that changed everything. "It's me while I'm alive. After me it becomes Rachel." Daniel went still. Melissa did not. "That's convenient." "No," I said. "That is what June wanted, and after today I understand why." Daniel dragged both hands over his face. He looked tired now, older somehow. Not because of age, but because the truth had finally caught up with him. "So that's it," he said. "You control everything." I shook my head. "No, today was your chance to show me I could trust you with the truth. Instead, you sneaked into my home, let your wife feed on rumors, and stood in front of your mother's last words still thinking about money." His eyes filled again. "You think I don't know how bad that sounds?" "Do you?" That question sat between us. Rachel broke the silence. "Dad, what happens now?" I took a slow breath. This was the trap I had set in my mind the night before, though back then I did not know all the truth yet. I only knew I needed to stop guessing and make betrayal show its own face. "Now," I said, "we stop pretending." I looked at Daniel. "You will give me your spare key before you leave." He reached into his pocket without arguing. That hurt almost more than if he had fought. He already knew he had lost something bigger than access to my house. I held out my hand. He placed the key in my palm. It felt cold. "Second," I said, "Melissa is no longer welcome in this home until I say otherwise." She gave a bitter laugh. "Gladly." "No," Rachel said, "not gladly, ashamedly." Melissa looked away. "Third," I continued, eyes still on Daniel, "if you want any relationship with me after today, you will tell the full truth, all your debts, every lie, every time you came in here, every drawer you searched, everything." He nodded once barely. "And fourth, you will get help, real help, financial, legal, emotional, whatever it takes, because this does not happen again. Not to me, not to Rachel, not to your own son one day. At that he broke. Not loudly. Daniel had never been loud when the pain was real. His shoulders just caved in. He sat down hard in the chair across from me and covered his face. I came in here 4 times, he said into his hands. The first time was after you missed my call one morning. I told myself I was checking on you. The second time I looked in the den in your bedroom. The third time Melissa came with me. The fourth time was last week. I found the box, but I didn't open it because I heard a car outside and panicked. Rachel made a sound like somebody had hit her. He kept going because shame had finally done what love could not. It had made him honest. I was wrong, he said. I know I was wrong. I kept telling myself I'd fix it before anybody knew. I kept telling myself if I found something, I could save my house, save my marriage, save everything. But all I did was prove Mom right. I let greed touch it. His voice cracked on the last word. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I sat down too. When your mother died, I said, I made my own bad choice. I held that letter too long. I thought silence was strength. I thought control was protection. I was wrong too. Rachel came closer then, and for the first time all day, she put a hand on my shoulder. So what do we do now? I looked at both my children, one steady, one shattered. We tell the truth from now on, I said, even when it makes us look ugly. Daniel lowered his hands. His face was wet and red and small in a way no father wants to see. Are you ever going to forgive me? I thought about that for a long second. Forgiveness is possible, I said. Trust is slower. He nodded like he deserved no more than that. Melissa left first, angry and empty-handed. Daniel followed a few minutes later, but not before turning at the door and looking back at me with the kind of regret that comes too late to stop the damage, but maybe not too late to change a life. Rachel stayed and made tea neither of us really drank. And that night before she left, I looked at my wife's letter one more time and finally understood the lesson she had tried to leave us. Secrets do not protect a family. Love without truth spoils. Pride without honesty destroys. So if this story touched you, please like, comment, and subscribe. Because the worst betrayals do not start with strangers. They start when family stops telling the truth and calls it love.